Oh man, well I mean if we're gonna talk about Daft Punk and that song, a couple years ago was on tour with Duran Duran, and of course Duran Duran and Nile Rodgers made some tiny little hits in the '80s together.
Oh, just a couple.
Just a couple.
I can't think of any.
Reflex.
Yeah.
I mean, I could hear them all in my head. I heard them all every night.
Who was he? Who was that guy?
Nile Rodgers is a chic. He is a disco god. Yeah, right. The freak. But he has this guitar.
When he made all that, I was in the roller skating rink, roller skating off of all that stuff.
Oh man.
Let's just talk about that.
And he's still going now. While we're mentioning Nile Rodgers, I got to give a shout out to my fellow hometown musician from Guernsey, Moura Massa. You know, he's killing it in the US right now, and you know, he's just been collaborating with Nile Rodgers.
That's great. It's nice to hear anyone is killing it in a positive way. That's nice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nile Rodgers. I mean, so this record that I've been making, I was writing it, some of the songs, or at least cleaning up demos this summer. That I was on tour with Duran Duran, and like I remember one time, I'm a really big Led Zeppelin fan, as a lot of us are. I have an opinion in the world, and a lot of my friends will back me up on this, where there are two types of people in the world. There are people that like Led Zeppelin, and there are people that I don't like. And it's generally pretty par for the course, unfortunately. Like, usually if I say that in a room, they're like, I don't like Led Zeppelin, and I'm like, see, guys? But anyway, so we're catering in, I think outside of Philly or Camden, New Jersey. And he's in there talking with the band. Now the band's great. The bass player and drummer became kind of close friends on the tour. You know, you see everybody every day, and there was kind of like a very approachable vibe. And I walk into catering. I was having my salad or whatever I'm eating, and there's Nile Rodgers talking about like Led Zeppelin, and I'm like, oh my God, yes. Yeah. And he's like, you know what the real secret of the band was? And I interrupted him, and I said, John Paul Jones. And he was just like, my man. So, you know, and I mean, Duran Duran's great, but I would sit like a fanboy in the front, in the security barrier, watching him play guitar every day during sound check, whenever I could. You know, he's so humble. He's very happy to be alive. He's very happy to make this music that he does. That guitar that he has is called the Hitmaker. He kept that guitar in a gig bag in the crew bus. That guitar is, you know, I don't know if you know what you know about vintage instruments, but it's like the pieces of a 60-something neck and a 60-something Fender Strat body put together, and it said, you can look this up, it's called the Hitmaker. It said that through that guitar, over $1 billion in revenue has been written.
That's amazing.
And, you know, we all have these dreams of being musicians, or what it is, or like we were talking off the air about how recording the energy or that live energy, and like this is a guy that has done it and has done it consistently at a very high level of success. Whether you care about disco music or Madonna or any of that stuff, I mean, what has he done? How does he work? What is his practice that gets him to this place where it's just coming out of him, you know? Yeah. And like, how do you strive to find that in your own, within yourself and your own energy, you know?
It's almost like some essence that you can just grab out of the air, you know, if you're lucky and you're listening and you have that instrument in your hand when that essence is coming by.
I mean, yeah, but it's also the way you live. Like, you can't, if you wake up in the morning mad at the world, you ain't gonna, you may write a really angry song or something, or nothing, or do anything. You may yell at your neighbor, or like, get hit by a car when you're not paying attention.
What's so interesting, though, is that I listened to an interview with Nile Rodgers the other night for a radio show that he did. And it was interesting, he told me he picked up the guitar for the first time after doing an acid trip. And he had never play guitar or anything, because he grew up, his parents were addicts, so he grew up around that. And there was this doctor, I wish I could remember the full interview, this famous doctor, the one who believed in hallucinogenic.
Timothy Leary?
Maybe.
Terrence McKenna?
One of those
guys.
Yeah,
one of those tea
probably
guys.
Timothy Leary. I mean, Dr. Leary was...
Yeah, he was very famous, I guess, in the 60s, 70s.
Yeah, that's the Timothy Leary.
So that's what happened. He did an acid trip with him, and then all of a sudden, he picked up the guitar and played this famous song. He said he'd never done it in his life.
Oh God, I wish I could take acid
So
and get that. Like
I just wish I could take an aspirin and do that. You know, I'm just saying.
come to my house
give
for
me
the
some
aspirin.
Tylenol. Give me some Tylenol or something so I can just get up and just hit it. You know, just especially the piano and the violin because I love both of those instruments. But and then he talked about a lot of where he went from there, and he said what made him become sober. I think he was at one of Madonna's parties in Miami, and he thought he was really just doing it, just going. And then someone recorded it, and he heard it played back, and he saw how horrible he was.
Yeah.
He said that's actually what made him become sober, not everything else, because in his brain it was saying one thing, but what was really coming out was another. So that goes all the way back to what we talked about mindset.
Yeah, and I think it's really
Makes
funny
you create-
with
makes you
mindset and
not
that
create.
and that thing about sobriety or whatever. I am not sober by any means, but I will say this: that there is, and I've been very guilty of it in the past, this like sense of entitlement that exists sometimes with musicians, where they think that they're not doing it unless they're like putting down an 8-ball or like drinking or smoking cigarettes or having this like sense of whatever, you know, what they're bought and sold, like what Guns N' Roses was, you know, like doing heroin is going to make me be like Chet Parker or, you know, these jazz musicians.
Chet Baker.
Yeah,
Chet Baker, sorry,
I wonder,
yes,
and I
thank you.
wonder where that comes from. You know, what makes a person go into that? Because I see that in a lot of different areas. Musicians, I was just thinking, I used to do musical theater for a living. I see, like, dancers have this thing where they always got to smoke. I'm like, dude, we got to go out there and do 8 shows a week, and you know, you're doing all these turns, and you're like, how are you going to do all that smoking and keep your body together? But it's like this thing, and the same thing in film and TV, because I work film and TV as well. And you see a lot of people over in the corner doing what they got to do, and stuff like that, and you go, how does that keep you together?
I would say that, you know, for some musicians and performers and creative types, it's the same kind of personality that gives you the courage to get up on stage and do something is also the same voice that's in your head telling you how awful you were afterwards. You know, a lot of art comes from darkness, not all of it, thankfully, but a lot of it does, and people like Chet Baker, you know, I don't know if he could have existed.
You know,
I
mean, I think that sounds great to say that a lot of art comes from darkness.
not all of it.
But no, of course, I understand that. But like that to me just continues the myth that in order to be a successful musician, you have to be messed up. And you have to come from this broken home or something. Like, look at Kurt Cobain, look at this tortured soul of Chris Cornell, or all these people that we've been losing, or like Amy Winehouse or something like that. So we elevate these people that were really broken and damaged inside. Yes, what they contributed to the world was beautiful in its own unique way, but that doesn't...
Could have done so much more. It would have been great to see that journey of them overcoming.
Of course it would be, but what's unhealthy for is that the people that listen to it, that are trying to be inspired from this, they think that the right path is messed up. You know, like, and that's the dangerous part, because, you know, I know a lot of good people that are healthy and successful, and they go out and do it every night, and all the most successful artists that I've worked with, you don't see them at the bar. You don't see them buying bags, and you don't see them like sneaking off. They are like, I worked with The Weeknd when The Weeknd was a baby band in a theater show. I mean, his entourage around him, sure, the guys in the band, like, if you messed up, you're going to have some issues, because, you know, it is a business. You have hundreds of that. If you're in a band in that level, nobody's going to want to see you catch popping pills. Live Nation doesn't want to invest that money in you, and that's where we're at. I mean, you know, if you failed it, it's beautiful that you make art. I love making art. I only make records for myself. I don't care if anyone heard it, or we talk about this on another radio show 10 years from now. I'm doing this because it fills a hole inside of me that makes me feel better as a human being and spiritually sound and balanced. That allows me in my life to make better decisions when it comes to my actual work that pays for this, or my relationships with my girlfriend or my family or the people around me. Because what music does for me is it makes me feel more authentic. And that authenticity translates to people. And when you become authentic, you become more beautiful. You have, I hate to say it, like a light inside of you that people tend to connect with more.
Yes, exactly.
And I know it sounds cheesy or wrong, but when you just think that, like, oh my God, you know, if I wanted to be as good as this guitar player, well, this guy did heroin. Maybe I should do heroin. Like, that is the most spiritually bankrupt and corrupt way to try and find a goal. And, like, who wants to live somebody else's terrible experience?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I mean, they obviously weren't enjoying it because look at how their life is.
They're dead.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, I mean, they're dead. All of them. All the singers, pretty much, except for what, like Eddie Vedder and my generation in the 90s, they're dead.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Jerry Cantrell, thank God he's still
Jerry
with us, you know,
Cantrell.
like,
Yeah, I mean,
that's the guy who's seen it all and just come out on the other side. Such a great, positive person.
yeah. And
Right, nice guy.
And you know, it's those things in life. I mean, we were talking about very successful people, and it's really easy to talk about successful people, but it's the people that are here on college campuses and in rehearsal spaces, and the people that are just struggling, or the people that just moved to Los Angeles to be something that they're not yet, that they have a passion inside of themselves. And it's really important to those people to see what healthy habits look like.
Exactly.
Yeah, follow your light.
Hopefully,
that's
you
the
know, instead
main
of
thing.
the bad peer pressure that can come along, find a crew of good peer pressure.
And don't get me
Because it's
wrong,
out there.
if you're Holden, I'm down. But like, I just, you know, there's a time and place for everything, you know?
And most of those times and places are in California.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a lot of, I can't tell where the tour buses are anymore.
But yeah, no, I really like that you said that, you know, because absolutely for me, music is something that has saved me from a life like that.
Yeah.
You know, has saved me from a life of darkness that, you know, often is sad. It gets passed down through families, and you know, it's at some point you've got to take ownership and break that cycle.
Ownership's really
so it
important.
doesn't go to the next generation.
Yeah.
And through music, it just the vibration of it. There's just something about it. You know, if ever I'm feeling down, you know, you just put those headphones on and just let it just take you
Yeah,
away.
it's
And let
very-
it heal you.
It's very good to have those sorts of things where you can retreat into headphones or your record collection. Or like the other day, I've been dealing with some death in my family in this past 2 weeks, and I had kind of a hard day on Monday with some work things, you know, just life stuff, you know. And I just was like, you know what? I need like a would take the dog to the record store.
Mm-hmm.
I just bought some records, you know, like whatever it was. I listened to a lot of weird old stuff and Jimmy Smith and soundtrack music and stuff like that. And, you know, it's just kind of nice to have those healthy habits, because we're not taught healthy habits. We're taught habits are bad for us. We smoke, we drink, and these are bad habits. But we don't tell people we need to stretch or meditate or go for a walk or water the plants, you know. So I think one of the things that I've learned in the past 3 years especially, because, and we'll get to like kind of how we met and stuff like that, and I'll segue to that, was that I needed healthy habits in my life, because I, you know, when I did this stuff with Steve Albini and Dave Jordan and the stuff that we talked about when I was younger, I got to a place where music wasn't fun for me anymore. It was, will the guy at EMI think my voice is okay? And I wasn't eating, and I was broke, and I felt like I had stomach ulcers, and I couldn't focus, and I couldn't get anything, and all I cared about was like, I got to get these songs done, because if these songs go to this publishing company, then I'm going to get paid. It's like a pipe dream, you know? That's not how it works. And eventually I had this other band that was doing all right, and I was with these bad musicians around me that just, I'm not a rich man, especially at that time, but they figured because I had a job that entitled them to me buying them drumsticks or paying for the pizza after rehearsal, and I just didn't like the people that I was surrounded by. And, you know, like little cheesy sayings like, you can't fly like an eagle if you're surrounded by a bunch of turkeys is real, you know. And so I took a step back, and I focused on learning a trade that happened to just be in rock and roll and production, music production, live entertainment production. And I put 10 years of my life into that. Like, I did 10 Grammy Awards, I did Academy Awards, I did countless tours, I've been around the world pretty much. I've been fired and hired, I've met some great people, I've met some terrible people. And through all of that, I wasn't ever happy. I was making great money, and I had all the nice clothes that I wanted to, and I could buy leather jackets every time I got a tour, and I could buy hockey jerseys and go to Stanley Cup final games and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I was miserable, and I started going to see a therapist, which I think is very healthy for anyone.
Yeah.
If you're questioning that out there anywhere, and you've got dark thoughts, go talk to someone. Go talk to anyone. You will find that everyone is messed up. And,
It's the
and
human
most of the
condition.
men that I know, it all starts with, I was in a really bad relationship. And, that's where my story kind of ends off. Before we met, Greg, was that I was in a relationship with someone that I'd known for years. She had some issues and, her own terrible things that happened, including like suicides in her life and stuff like that. And I had my own issues. And we loved each other. We cared about each other. We liked the idea of each other. But we were such two giant balls of chaotic energy that when we met, it was just like... just terrible.
Yeah.
So, long story short, the relationship is ending. She comes back from finishing school in France and lets me pay for her family to have dinners and stuff for her graduation. And she graduates from college. And on a Friday night, I'm coming home from a festival in Alabama. On Monday morning, I have a meeting with my accountant to see what I was going to do. I was cleaning up my taxes. On that trip home on the weekend, I got offered a very large job in China. I went out to celebrate. I came home. We got into it. I probably said all the things that I just bit my tongue on that were killing me for the past year. And the next day, she was gone. And that was a Monday night. And by Friday, I was in China.
Wow.
And I got handed all of my financial issues, got cleaned up immediately, and I was sitting there, and thank God I went to therapy for a while because my therapist taught me about golden handcuffs, that I created this world for myself that was beautiful and great, but I was constricted to it because I had a moment where I was like, if I gave up playing music for this job, and I'm so broken and miserable in my life, then what did I give up? What did I do this for, And I remember on this treadmill in China, I'm listening to old demos, and I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do this now. And I called up my friend David Ketching, he was in the Eagles of Death Metal and Queens of the Stone Age. He owns
Great musician.
he's a great guy as well, a survivor. He survived the Bataclan attacks.
Yeah.
And I called him, and I hadn't played guitar really that much in 10 years, hadn't really written many songs, but I had 30 songs here, demo ideas, and I called him and was like, I want 11 days in October. It was like June. So I had 4 months.
Nice.
And I could put on a good sales pitch, and when I'm driven to something, I accomplish it. And I just started making my calls and calling the people that I knew and trusted, and like my friend Peter Franco, who from the Daft Punk team, or my friend Adam Maples, who plays in the Earthlings with Dave Ketching, and was in the Sea Hags and Legal Weapon to play drums, or my
Had
friend
some affiliation with Guns N' Roses.
Yeah. And I mean, because people saw how passionate I was and how open I was to change, that they wanted to help me, because I was now finding my spiritual center, and that takes us to where we met. And
When you just made me think of something else, which just brought up a song that I think in my head of a lot of situations you were telling me. You were just mentioning about your girlfriend and the situation.
Ex-girlfriend.
Sorry. Let's get the
My
the
new
EX in
girlfriend
there.
is
Sorry.
amazing and
Let's
beautiful,
get the
and
EX in there.
is
You made me
should
think
call
of
it a
something
lie, actually.
as the three of us all sit here and we all relate to music. When people talk and I listen, I get a song in my head, and you just made me think of this classic.
I love it.
Dealing with relationships. I'm not going to mention the title. I'm just going to play it because I think we all know it. So here we go.
And that's a great story.
1 second, let me get the camera set because we're working with a tripod situation here.
Okay, we're working with tripods. This is our illustrious cameraman, Marcus. Give him props. Okay, we can't do without him. We can't do without him.
Working hard for you.
Yes, he is. Thank you.
Thank you, man. No worries.
Come here. I remember before I came here, I was thinking, right.
Yeah, that was a classic from Gladys Knight and the Pips, and Neither One of Us. Kevin, when you were mentioning the situation with your ex-girlfriend and everything else that just came to go boom, it made me instantly think of that song.
I like
Because the song is Neither One of Us wants to be the first to say goodbye, but we have to because we know.
And it hurts, man.
Thank
And
you,
it's not
Vito,
easy.
when you said that,
You care about somebody or something. Even if we have a tendency to be, and I think again when I said that every man that I talk to, generally speaking, all their pain and suffering comes from a bad relationship.
Yeah.
And most of them say I was in it for longer than I needed to be. And men and women have the same problem. So it's not unique or special.
It's not a gender thing.
Nobody likes
We
to
all
hear
go
that they're
through it.
not unique, but
Yeah.
this is what happens. So it ends, and as we were saying, like saying goodbye. It's not you're saying. I didn't say goodbye to her. I probably had other words that I used to her. But hey man, I told myself the entire drive over here, like Catholic school again.
But it would be, believe me, it would be
God,
it would be
Catholic
that
school
clear.
and my ex. I'm like, go to my therapist after this. But anyway, I really what I really didn't know at the time, and I know now more than ever, is that I was saying goodbye to all that garbage that I allowed to live inside of myself that wasn't me.
Exactly.
And I was saying I was finally shedding a skin, and did it suck? Yes, it was terrible. You know, my apartment gets drained of its furniture. I live on the road, so that you don't really have like a network of support. You know, I stopped drinking for a while so I could have a clear head and get through that. And that's when I got to the point where it was I need to make this record. And part of that was after we did our first session, which became just a drum session basically and a sketching session, was that I needed to go take vocal lessons. And a friend of mine, Kai, a mutual friend of ours, we met when I was in Torquay, Manilow, and I was like, Kai, you're my friend, I trust you, I don't care if you give lessons or not, you are teaching me, which led into where we met through this Both musical, because Kai was like, boy, you got to get out there and you got to sing, you're going to get in the choir, you're going to sing Beatles songs, and I don't care how uncomfortable you are.
Yeah, exactly. We met, we do a show every year. It's the nativity story told to the music of the Beatles that was put together by our buddy Jason Page, the amazing Jason
man.
Page. Oh my God. And I've known Jason 23 years now. And that is an amazing human being, but he has a resume like yours. Like it's so
It's
long.
all over the place.
Right now he's riding high because I kind of forgot, a lot of us forgot, he is the singer of the original Pokemon theme.
yeah.
So when Pokemon became original again, I was like,
Dude,
wait a minute, Jason, you did that.
going to
That's
conventions
what
and
yeah,
stuff.
we were talking about back in the day all of the stuff that happened to him with that. Talking about this business of show, how they didn't pay him. Like, that's when I knew him back when, you know, all of that. And he's sung with Michael Jackson. He's sung with everybody. He's been the voice. Jason's just
super talented.
But then he still brings all these people together. We do this show, and Both is a show. It's the nativity story told to the music of the Beatles with completely different arrangements, a cappella arrangements, rock, soul.
It's fun. It takes this
It's
Jesus
fun.
story.
And the whole story from beginning lick to last lick is Beatles music.
And you sing the word
It all
love
works.
constantly, and you know you just don't realize how that changes you until you sing love through a matinee and an evening show 7 times in 7 different shows.
Exactly.
And you know, so how we really met was that I was in an emotional high. I was very happy. I was very positive about all this change, and it was, you know, being vulnerable and being in this new theater group. I was never a theater guy, you know, that I wrote this email to everyone. And that's kind of how Greg brought me back into the show, and Greg's got the email. He showed it to me last night.
And I never knew that.
Like a sharing circle.
Yeah, well, we had a sharing circle, and I didn't want to share because I didn't, honestly, you know, don't tell anybody in Radioland, I didn't want to cry in front of everyone.
It's too late, we got you.
And so he sends me that, he's like, I want to start with this email, and you know, we're getting towards ending with it, but read the email since you want to do this.
Yeah, I do want to read it. And I'll say that when we were emailing back and forth, something I'd never shared with you is that I kept this email and put a star next to it and never said anything to you about it because of the situation that I was going through at the time, which is how Rob and I met, because I shared with Rob. It hit me hard, I guess, in 2015. I've been going through some things for 3 or 4 years, and then finally, when my grandmother passed in 2015, then my great aunt, her sister, passed away 3 months later. I was having all of this stuff, and one of my best friends, who's in the business, who used to sing with Jason. That's how I met Jason, actually. My rest in peace, Greg Clark. He was a huge session singer, and he was starting a business here, and I was going to run the business for him. We talked on that Sunday, and I get the call Tuesday. He had
just gone.
Dropped. Yeah. And so another good buddy of mine, B.J. Crosby, who was the original B.J. Crosby, Smokey Joe's Cafe on Broadway. Like all of my friends were just going. You know, just a lot of other things going on, and I was always brought up the upbringing of you handle it, you deal with it, you keep going,
Tough
you don't
enough,
talk, you know. And then
Stiff upper lip.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden one day, snap, it just hit, and just started doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And I was starting to, by the time you wrote this, I was coming to grips that that's where I was
Yeah.
when you wrote this email. And that was on December 26, 2016. And I'm going to do my best to read it all here. Wow, thank you, Beth, for sharing. I wanted to share my feelings in the pre-show circle last night, but to be perfectly honest, I probably would have cried, and I really didn't have it in me to be so vulnerable before the show. So here it is. 10 years ago, I had given up on music. I had some bands that did some really great things, but I was broke in the middle of a divorce, and to say I had a drug problem would have been an understatement. I stopped writing, stopped creating my art, put down the guitar, stopped singing, and became a roadie. For 10 years, I traveled with some of the biggest bands all over the globe, worked some of the biggest TV shows, and had many great nights. I had moments where I thought I was happy, but I wasn't. It was just an escape. No amount of money, success, or temporary people could fill the hole inside of me. They say not all who wander are lost. That wasn't me. I was very lost, unhappy, and wanted it to end, and tried a few times. A year ago, I was very fortunate to land a gig on the Barry Manilow tour where I had the chance to meet Kai. I never knew how important that day would be until now. 2016 had been a kick in the gut for all of us, for a lot of us. I'm no exception. At the beginning of the year, I was engaged to a friend of 13 years. She spent the first 4 months in France finishing her education. When she got home, she graduated from college, got a job, and left me. To say I was destroyed would be an understatement. I had so much trouble loving and trusting people, let alone myself in the first place. This event didn't help me at all. I couldn't run away from this. I couldn't hide my head anymore. I had to find something to love again. I looked inside my heart and found music. Music. It was there all along. I just had to let it shine. So from a treadmill in China, I started making calls. It was June 11th. I had booked some time in October at a studio in Joshua Tree called the Rancho de la Luna and assembled my team. I had 4 months to get ready for my moment. It was a monumental task. I had no idea what it would bring. I just knew I had to do it to put me back together after a decade of running. Which eventually led me to both, and all of you wonderful people. I had no idea what I signed up for when I told Jason I was interested. I just knew if I wanted to make a great record, I had to keep singing. I didn't know that this process was going to surround me with such talented, loving, caring people. I was 110% out of my comfort zone during this entire process. I'm musical. I'm a rock guy with full sleeve tattoos. I'm not a musical kind of guy at all. I always felt naked on stage without a guitar. Now I have to sing and dance too? What the did I sign up for? But I'm glad I did. I learned so much about myself during this weekend, and I learned to love myself again. And most importantly, Friday night was the first time I was an artist in front of an audience again in 10 years. Now I have 7 shows under my belt, and I'm ready to shine. And for that, I am forever in debt to each of you. I might not have talked to everyone during this process, but I'm very grateful for all of your collective energies. Thank you for showing me that I can live my dream and I can have a quality of love in my life again that isn't self-serving. If you're interested in following my path, I've added links below. Thank you for all your time. Thank you all for your voices, and thank you all for reading this novel-sized email.
I'm really good at
With
those.
love, Kevin McGuire, the Gamma Senate.
Kevin,
So that email right there.
I mean, it sounds so much
It
better than your
just-
voice, honestly.
you're a hell of a reader, Greg.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say is when I read that, I bawled like a baby.
Yeah, and I read it last night when you sent it back to me. I knew I wrote that, and it's like, okay, I was definitely being vulnerable. I cried last night reading it, and it's nice that you brought this up. It's a really nice moment for me because that was the beginning of the path.
Mm-hmm.
And you, at the beginning of the path, everything is so new and fresh and new and exciting, and the middle of the path has been a lot harder than that. Like, I can do it. I'm ready.
You got to face the dragon, though.
Yeah, and it was a beautiful place to be at. I'm glad that it inspired you.
Yeah, and you said something right here. as we went back and forth after I sent this to you, I love this, what you said. Thanks for sending it back to me a few years later. It's like a time capsule. Things really do get better when you do what you love first.
It is, and you know, again, for anyone out there that is in it right now in a negative place or overwhelmed by the static and noise, reach out to anyone. You can reach out to me. You can find me at Kevin at the Gamasennin, GAMASENNIN.com. That's, you just email me. I'll listen, because not all of us have someone that can listen. Not all of us have people around us that make the right choice, and I can honestly say that I made a right choice for myself, and I found my center, and it's gotten me back. And I've been making this record for the past 3 years that has been one of the most beautiful experiences of my entire life. I was very fortunate to get the people that I have. You know, Peter Franco for the Daft Punk team, Adam Maples from the godfathering of desert rock bands that he was in. My bass player, John Avila, he was in the Oingo Boingo. Chris Caswell, the session keyboard player, you know, and now it's like, now I'm talking to my friend that played drums in Shakira to see if he could come in and do his hand claps and stuff. And, you know, each step of the way, I had this guitar player, Dimitri Coates, play. He was in a band called Burning Brides, and he plays with Keith Morris, the original singer of Black Flag, in a band called Off. And, you know, just when things seem impossible, they are impossible. There's like a thing from like Alice in Wonderland, and I'm a big proponent of the psychedelic experience, helping figure out who you are, and dissolve your ego. And like, if you just listen, you could find it. And there's a thing in there that says life is not, things are not impossible, they are impassable. And you can get through things. You can't, if it's a big mountain and you look at it as a mountain, you're never going to get up there. But if it's a step, and you make steps, and you allow yourself to be vulnerable, and you allow yourself to be open to the experiences, and not let that stupid voice that's been telling you need to be a drug addict to be a musician, like we talked about, get the better of you, then you could do it. And it's not, this isn't for everybody. It's a very difficult path. I'm very blessed to have created a platform in my life where I can afford these things, because nobody's giving record deals out anymore. So if you want to do this, like, toughen up, Buttercup. It's gonna be tough. And you know, even those GoFundMe's and stuff, like, hey man, are you looking to make a record, or are you looking to pay for grandma's cancer, or the house that you just had burned down? It's a very delicate society that we work in, that we live in now, of like charity and needing things, you know, and find that thing. You know, like, I know it's really lame, but my parents are big Billy Crystal fans, at least my mom. And that City Slickers movie with Jack Palance, when he's like, that one thing, what's that one thing? And it's like, you don't know what that one thing, it's like that one thing. Curly's gold, right? That one thing is different for everybody. And just because this worked for me doesn't mean that it's going to work for you, but I can honestly say that if you quiet your mind and get rid of the noise as much as you can and listen to yourself, that's generally when the best decisions for you are going to come through. And you know, people know, your gut knows. You know if that relationship you're in right now sucks. You know that if the job's not right for you, you know, means to an end is one thing, that's fine, but like, if you know, change it. It's very possible. It just takes a little effort and a little work, and 3 years later, somebody could be reading back to you an email, and
there you go.
And it's nice to be after the equal sign right now. It's really nice.
I'd like to ask you though, because after the musical that you did, you went out to the desert, a place where you can hear yourself, and you went to the Rancho de la Luna.
Yeah.
You know, we only got a few minutes left, but could you tell our listeners a little bit about the Rancho?
Yeah, no problem. The Rancho's great. It's been funny. It was before both, actually, when I went to the Rancho, but I went to the Rancho in like 2003 or 4 once, when it was a baby still. Fred Drake had just passed away. Dave had just taken over the studio, and it was nothing like what it is today. So for me to go back out there with my buddy Adam, Adam Maples and Dave Catching have known each other for 30 years. It was really beautiful. It was another one of those moments where, like, okay, I'm going to do it. So, you know, it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's just a little house in the desert with a lot of gear. Some of it works, some of it has its own little ghosts in the system. And it's just a great, as Dave says, there's something in the dirt out there that just breeds inspiration. And Joshua Tree is a beautiful place. It's amazing how much it's changed over the past 15 years. But the rancho itself is just a great place to go and work, and just, you walk outside. If you can't be inspired in a recording studio by just going outside and seeing a Joshua Tree, coyotes and roadrunners and the stars, then I question what you're doing.
and there's some real history there.
There's a lot of real history.
Like the Desert Sessions, Josh Hum's work.
It's nice to be in a room where success has existed.
And so before we close, I'd really like to actually introduce your band's name.
Oh yeah, we haven't done that.
We kept the secret.
I know. So my band is called the Gamma Senin. That's GAMASENNIN. You can find us on SoundCloud, some old tracks. You can find us on all the Instagram and Facebook. It's just the Gamma Senin.
Awesome.
And we are, yesterday I just booked a week in the studio to finish up vocals at Stinson Beach. That's where we work out of now.
Awesome.
At Panoramic Studios. And yeah, we're in talks with hopefully getting this really big mixing engineer who just has recently done Interpol and MGMT to mix the record. And again, these are all things where when I was on that treadmill, I didn't think it was possible. Now here I am.
Because it's just like when Rob and I met and what we've been talking about, and we'll wrap up with this, that you start to hear yes, you no longer hear no. And you just keep hearing yes, yes, yes.
Yes,
And
yes is contagious.
Yes, it is. And going back to music, yeah, it may not be everyone's thing, but our bodies are music. Our heartbeat is music. That's rhythm. So we all, it's in everything that we are. Whether you hear it out here, everything about you, a touch, the sound of you touching your skin, it's all music. So that's one thing that we talk about, how music heals. That's really what this show is about, and you're a classic example of that.
It's
Rob
healed me,
is,
man. I mean, it has 100%, because I went back to that thing. I found my passion again that I put down, and I took off those handcuffs, those golden handcuffs, and I just went for it. And I honestly wake up happy every day, consistently happy, which is amazing.
So thank you so much.
It's been great.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you for having me, guys. It's been really nice. I wish you all the success on your new show.
Thank you so much, listeners, and have a wonderful evening.
Dude, so much more I want to ask.
I didn't even play any of the songs.
I know we didn't even get to it. I know, but thank you, God.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much. That was. I'm happy. You can always come back and do. Now,
Yeah,
he's got a show as well. You can always
I actually
come
didn't
back.
get that tour that I thought I was going to get, so I'm around for a little bit longer right now.
Yeah.
We're trying to get a bunch of shows in the can, and then, like you said, the more we get, we can always edit.
Yeah, man, I'm
Because I like to
around.
hear you two talk about more. Obviously, our show is about the healing power of music, but getting all that background and that backstory,
Yeah,
and it's
man.
great to turn it around like you just did at
even
the
just
end.
out there, going back and
Or
forth,
even
just
in
about
here.
some of the different.
You can do it in here. You can record it.
Yeah,
next
man,
week.
I'm around. Next week's a little tough for me, but I'm around
Who's up
at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's really great. I enjoyed that.
Thanks, man. Thanks for
It's,
trying to keep me on point with the band. I forget sometimes that I have something to promote.